vehicle is marked with like Uber stickers or limo or whoever else is doing rideshare, that they could then theoretically just park in the space, or is it going to be a deliberate drop-off and pick-up zone?
I'll go to the director.
If I can, through the chair, it's the city's understanding that some rideshare can be registered with the Department of Transport. So if it is, they can park lawfully where taxi stands are. So it's basically if they're registered with the Department of Transport that they can park where the taxi stands are.
So just to clarify, so they could use it as a parking space as opposed to a pickup space? So that's what I'm just trying to clarify.
Through the chair, it's more where they can stand or park within the taxi bay itself. We haven't investigated where there is parking or standing, but we assume that they can do either as long as they're registered within the taxi with the Department of Transport.
Okay, I suppose the next follow-on question is it better to specify taxi and rideshare, or is it better to just do a drop-off and pick-up zone sign that says drop-off and pick-up only, so that nobody is parking in that spot? I just want to make sure, I suppose, to clarify the question, is if there's no restriction around a vehicle that, because taxis have in the past just parked in a taxi rank and they've all disappeared off, and you can find a taxi but you can't find a driver. I'm just worried about that same incident happening then if you've got vehicles that are marked as with their stickers as Uber drivers, etc., using it as a parking space as opposed to a pickup space. So is it better to mark it as a taxi and rideshare parking pickup zone and specifically say pickup, or is it better to just say a drop-off and pickup zone at broad spectrum without limiting it to taxi and rideshare?
Through the chair, it's probably better to say taxi and rideshare pickup. So at least it gives that that taxis aren't losing all their bays as such. The only thing is it may discourage rideshare to park elsewhere if they think that's the only bay they can use it for rideshare parking. But I'll suggest just put, if we can, probably more effective to have it as taxi and rideshare pickup.
Okay, so sorry, can I just ask the proposer again, what was the exact wording of this of your motion, of your amendment?
Thank you. What I had proposed, sorry, I'm having a little crash thing going on here, my apologies. Was an additional line on the end of Lim 2 that just says signage referring to taxis and ride sharing on 8th Avenue. So it's quite broad.
I'd be prepared to accept that with an extra bit of just like, if it's possible to specify the signage be taxi and rideshare pick-up and drop-off only.
Through the chair, we're not just sure how it interacts with the other legislation, state legislation, in terms of dealing with taxis. We can put it in there and see how we go, but we have to take that on notice, what the impact would be.
Is the proposer okay with that extra little bit about the drop-off and pick-up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy to accept that.
Seconder? So that now forms part of the substantive. We'll just make sure the wording is correct, that the minute taker has got the correct wording. Have you got a question? So if you could just clarify it for the minute taker, please.
Perhaps I'll just take out that a full stop there and delete the word signage. So it now says line markings and signage on 8th Avenue referring to taxi and rideshare pick up and drop off only. I'm happy with that.
Yes? Okay, so that's correct. Would anyone like to speak against?
Just a quick question, if I may. Thank you. Which number is the pharmacy, please? Is that where the post office box is, the post box? So there's a yellow highlight there on the map. Is that the one that's staying and the other's going?
To the director?
Yep, or whoever knows. On the map, it's got the yellow highlighted bay where it's got the post box. So I'm just inquiring if that's the pharmacy and whether that yellow bay is the one that's staying.
Yeah, the post box isn't actually at 50.
Pharmacy?
Sorry, 52 is the medical. Sorry, 52 is the medical centre.
Yeah, and the pharmacy?
54 is the pharmacy. 58 is the post office is down for care. So I don't know what this post box is there. There's no post box there.
Okay, so the pharmacy one is to be removed, is that right?
The taxi bays. There's one more remain there outside in front of the medical centre.
So which, when you say the medical centre, that's 54.
Are you querying the location of which
one is
exactly
going,
of the three, which one would remain?
Simply because the pharmacy is important. So I'm just wondering which one is staying after you've got the reds there and the proposals there.
I'll go to the director. Is that something that needs to be in the motion, or is that something that operationally we can ensure that it's the one in front of the pharmacy that remains?
Through the chair, it's just indicative at the moment on that plan. At the time we did the plan, it was only one bay. One was two bays to be kept as taxi stands. So if the intention is to have it keep the taxi stand in front of the pharmacy, we can do the operational.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone speaking against? Councillor Peterson-Pick?
Just a question, if I can, a few questions.
Go ahead.
My first question is to the mover, whether she undertook any consultation with businesses about the reduction to one parking bay, taxi bay, and specifically with the pharmacy and the medical clinic, whether she knows their views.
Does the mover wish to answer?
The city's been undertaking consultation for the past year. I haven't spoken with the medical centre owner, and I haven't spoken with Kevin.
Okay, thank you. So my next questions are to the city. Excuse my voice. I'm not 100% well. So I understand that the city undertook consultation about reduction of the bays from 3 to 2. Has the city undertook consultation about the reduction of taxi bays from 3 to 1?
I'll go to the director.
Yes, through the chair, my understanding is that we haven't.
Thank you. So I understand now, okay, so my follow-up question, has the city, during their consultation process that they did about reduction from 3 to 2, understood whether there is a need for 1 or 2 taxi bays? Can we learn from that consultation process anything?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, we haven't done analysis. We were taking little steps by reducing it from 3 to 2 and see how we go. And then if we need to, we can reduce that further. But at this stage, we're proposing from 3 to 2 at this stage.
Okay. Okay, thank you to the director. Just my last question to clarify about the changes that you just made now, because I can't see them on the screen. I understood that there is a word pick up and drop off only is going to be added. Are the word only referring to the taxis as well, or just to the rideshare?
It says,
I can just now see it. Yeah.
so the way that it's written, and I'll just read it out for you, seeing if you can't see it on your screen.
No, I can see it now.
You can see it now?
They just shared it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says only, and it looks like it relates to both the taxi and the rideshare. Is this the intent?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So can I have, Madam Chair, another question to the officers? What does that mean, that we're now limiting the taxi bays to pick up and drop off only? What does that mean?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, my understanding, the intention is for taxis and rideshare to simply to drop off, pick up, but not actually stand and park there.
But currently they are allowed to park there, right?
Sorry, can I just get that question repeated? Thanks.
Yes, currently, are they allowed, the taxis are allowed to park there and wait for customers?
Through the chair, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay, thank you. Look, I'll just provide a few comments if I can, and I would like to ask Madam Chair if we can vote on each one of the limbs separately, because I do have concerns with the change that was made to number 2, and I'm less concerned about number 1 and 3. I'll start by thanking the officers for bringing this forward. I raised both issues with regards to the need to do something with the awning and trucks hitting the awning in front of some of the shops, and particularly also the need to reduce the taxi bays, and a lot of feedback that I received from businesses. So I'm very happy and thank the officers for consulting and bringing this forward. I do have concerns about reduction to 1. I think that consultation should have been made before this being put forward with, at the very least, the 2 businesses that are, and they're more than businesses, they are services, they're medical services and pharmacy. I think, just a phone call to those businesses, we could have confirmed with them if they're happy. If they were if I heard tonight that they didn't have any concerns, I probably would have likely supported this. But I have reservation of supporting something that tomorrow morning, the pharmacy or the medical center or other businesses are not happy with. I also have in mind how Mellons will look like in 10 years' time. We'll have more developments. We already have now parking issues, and we will have much more, especially after the Lyric and the old Lyric Theatre development. When that will be constructed, that will be obviously a serious problem when it comes to parking. Those 2 bays will be crucial to get people to get to the town center if they are not on the bus service line, for example. Taking them and leaving 1 with no consultation, I'm not sure if it's the right way to do that. We can always obviously go backwards and change it back to a taxi bay, but then it will look to the community as we are taking a parking bay. And I would prefer to do it slowly, gradually, and with consultation. So yeah, so those are the reasons. So, Madam Chair, are we able to vote on this separately?
Yes. Councillor, are you foreshadowing a different recommendation?
Thank you for asking that. I'm happy to foreshadow the officer's recommendation, but I'm happy to vote on this separately.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone speaking for the motion? Anyone against? I'll go to the mover to close.
Thank you. When I have spoken with the businesses in the past in this area, with the medical centre and the pharmacy, my understanding with that from them was that they call cabs for their clients when they need them. They don't come out and wait and find a taxi there, and if they do, they'd rather find a taxi with no driver because they're in a cafe having a coffee, or there just won't be a taxi there. I won't bang on about it. I will just direct people to page 197 where it says the existing taxi bays are considered to be underutilised and generally vacant. Due to the proximity of the taxi bays to the numerous public transport services, it is considered that there is an excess of taxi bays in the locality. Thank you.
I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor...
Sorry, Madam Chair, are we voting separately?
Sorry, thank you, Councillor Peterson-Pick. I'll put this to the vote. Lim 1, all those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Eason. So that is unanimous. I'll now put Lim 2 to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Eason, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pick. And Lim 3, all those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now move on to item 10.5.2, Drainage Rose Avenue, and this has been pulled by the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just 1 second while I get this up on my iPad. Okay.
Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
No, I'm moving an amendment.
And
Okay.
I'll just check. The city has the amendment.
Yeah, I do wish to make just a small amendment to the amendment. If I may, it doesn't change the intent.
Yep, you can do that.
So it will now read, the council advises the applicant Evolve Bayswater Alliance / Public Transport Authority that 1, any additional drainage infrastructure associated with the redevelopment of the Bayswater train station to be constructed on rail, road or drainage reserved land. 2, it does not support the placement of the stormwater drainage infrastructure on land that is held in freehold by the city.
So you're moving the word, its preference for is for.
Or yes.
Okay.
So
So,
I'm happy to explain why as
so
well.
limb 1 starts with any, the word any. We'll just get that updated. While that's happening, do I have a seconder? Councillor Eason? So just limb 1, just delete all the words before any. It begins with any. So, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to remove that little bit from the original amendment because I think it could have been made stronger. So I feel now it's strong enough. And as I've given in my reasons for change, the city should be taking a very strong stance on refusing state infrastructure that will limit development potential of key strategic sites in the Bayswater town centre. You don't get more central than those sites where they're proposed.
Councillor Eveson?
Fairly similar, so definitely a stronger refusal. So the proposal destroys any future development value for the city, which would result in significant reimbursement for this key development site in the heart of Bayswater's town centre. And I applaud the city's officers on their report and the other options that they have provided. And I ask why this proposal isn't for delivery of this drainage on the Department of Communities site only metres away. That answer would reflect the same concerns we have and why I'm supporting the alternative motion put forward tonight.
Anyone like to speak against? Anyone for? Councillor Johnson?
Not for or against, but could I make a comment, please? I'm not going to comment on the development potential of the area, but on the use of our public land for the state government infrastructure projects that continues to impact on our community.
Thank you. Anyone speaking for? Councillor Peterson-Peake?
Just a question, if I can. I just didn't understand why we are removing the words or other state government land holdings in limb 1.
Oh, I'd be happy to elucidate. So
I'll go to the mover.
The reason for removing that was once again that they own the land directly next door to the site of ours that they were proposing on, and it'd be for the same reason.
So you're saying that we don't want them to put infrastructure on their land?
I'm saying that we would prefer for them to put their infrastructure on the rail, road or drainage reserved land. It's for drainage that they want to put it in, so they should put it on their land for the railroad.
Not on other state government land holdings?
No. The answer is no.
No, we don't want them to put the infrastructure on other state government land holdings. Okay, thank you.
Anyone speaking against? I'll go to the mover to close. Put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. So we'll now move on to item 10.5.4 under the bridge activation, Claudon Reserve Bayswater. This has been pulled by Councillor Eveson. Councillor Palmer, sorry, you've got an impartial, that's fine. You can stay in the room. Councillor Eason, are you moving the officer's recommendation?
No, I've got an alternative that the city's got a copy of prepared earlier.
So I'll just get the city to put that up. Councillors have been provided this as well.
Yeah, did you want me to read through? Or?
Yes, please read it out.
No worries. So the council, prior to formally considering the plan for under the bridge activation, under the Redcliffe Bridge, requests that further community consultation be undertaken on the current draft plan to gauge the level of community support for the elements proposed in the plan.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Palmer? Councillor Eason?
Look, thank you to the city officers for their work on this issue. I had quite a few questions when this first popped up in our committees. So the proposed activation under the now much wider Redcliffe Bridge brings about an opportunity, and since this proposal appeared as a potential option over a year ago, I've been interested to see the feedback from our community, the ones directly affected by what happens under the bridge. Sadly, the engagement done to date doesn't provide this visibility, and as the concept plan was moved through the committees that the city does have, the Skate and Bike Advisory and our Reconciliation Advisory Committees, there've been a lot of questions. Questions around cost, project cost and budget, types of materials, environmental impacts, as well as ongoing ownership and maintenance. Legitimate and thoughtful questions. Questions have been asked, but sadly there haven't been a lot of answers, not ones that provide surety to proceed, which is why this motion seeks to further and more directly engage with our community and provide time for these questions to be answered and ensure that community expectations are met with what goes on under the bridge. I encourage councillors to support what's on the table and to ensure we deliver the best community outcome. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Thank you. Just very briefly. Yes, there was a presentation to all councillors also. And one thing that we're aware of is that this is on Whadjuk land. And we need to remember that in the notation and illustration that they gave us, that it's changed to Whadjuk land instead of Noongar, which is what the reconciliation approved. Thank you.
Anyone speaking against? Councillor Deputy Mayor?
I just got a question. If the mover could just explain the difference between what's proposed in here of the draft concept being advertised for public comment and submissions received being considered as opposed to going out again.
The reason behind was so the city can have a bit more, I guess, transparency on who's responding to the consultation. There was concern, so when we asked the question about, there were some numbers given, but it was unclear about who was actually within the community. So there could be users from the other side in Belmont surrounds. We're really focused on what the City of Bayswater residents and ratepayers are interested in. So.
I'm not going to speak against, but I'll foreshadow the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Anyone speaking for? Anyone against? I have a question to the director. With the amended motion, do we have any idea of what the financial implications are?
Through the chair, we haven't proposed that question to Tonkin Gap Alliance in terms of that question. So we don't know the financial implications in terms of undertaking further community consultation. Because so far the consultation was undertaken by them, and the results came from the outcome from the survey that they've undertaken.
Thank you. Yeah. I'll go to the mover. Sorry, Councillor Peterson-Pick, are you speaking for?
I have a question. I'm actually not clear about the differences between the motions, the officer's accommodation and the one before us.
So,
are we able to get explanation also from the officers? What's the difference?
Okay, I'll go to the director.
So I understand that the recommendation from the officers in the report is to undertake the public advertising, which is putting the concept design on the website to enable the City of Bayswater residents to provide comments on the draft plan. Whereas the foreshadow motion, it's more open in terms of any specific community consultation. However, that particular Lim A is to undertake that consultation via putting it on the website to enable residents within the City of Bayswater to put in comment.
Is it also led by a different group?
What has been undertaken previously was undertaken by TGA, where they have undertaken an open session and invited people. And the findings from that was that only around 30% of the residents from Bayswater had input. The rest of the outcome from the survey were residents living outside the City of Bayswater.
Thank you.
Sorry, Just a follow-up question, if I can. So the officer's recommendation is recommending that not the city will undertake the consultation, or will the city will undertake the consultation? So under the officer's recommendation, who is undertaking the consultation?
TJ.
Because in the agenda briefing form, I asked the question in a different wording, and I remember the director, I think it was Doug Pearson, advised that the city is recommending that we will undertake the consultation. So I understood the officer's recommendation is asking us to undertake it. So can I get clarification? Who is undertaking the consultation in the officer's recommendation?
I'll go to the director.
Yeah.
I'll go to the director. We understand the question. I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the expectation is for TGA, Tongan Gap Alliance, to undertake the consultation.
TGA, okay. And the difference is that with the motion on the table, it will be the city
Yes.
undertaking the consultation,
Yes.
but we don't know the costs.
Yes.
This is what Madam Chair has clarified.
Yes.
So that's the main difference between the two. So it's just that who is leading the consultation, right? I'm trying to understand the difference.
Well, there's more differences, councillor, because the officer's recommendation has 3 limbs and what's in front of us is just 1. So
I'm looking, sorry. Okay, I'm good. Thank you so much.
okay. Would anyone like to speak, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, just another follow-up question. In relation to the concerns about City of Bayswater residents not having input into the plan, with the foreshadowed motion, is there facility in there to put in a section that references about getting the breakdown and seeing the feedback from City of Bayswater residents separately, so when they undertake it, that they can separate out that data?
Through the chair, we could propose that to TGA to undertake that, and they can get that out of the consultation. They could segregate the feedback from City of Bayswater residents compared to the people outside.
So then, sorry, follow-up question to that. So then with the process for this, it goes out for the current plan that they've got will go out for community consultation. We can get the breakdown on the data as to how many of our residents support it, how many of our residents don't support it, and how many people from out of area support it and don't, etc. But then what happens from there? Are they under any obligation to implement any of that feedback, number 1, and number 2, are they under any obligation to actually revise the plan? And do they need our permission to do it in the first place?
Through the chair, I understand that the funding is part of the Tongan Gap project, and there has been a certain amount set aside for this specific purpose. But obviously, prior to delivering that, we need certainty in terms of the consultation. There is obligation for them to deliver something as part of the project. However, the exact amount of funding that has been set aside, it's not truly known. We know there's an estimated amount in the budget for that, but that there is a commitment made for this project to deliver some sort of facility in that area. So in what form, it's unsure, but there is a commitment in the funding to provide some sort of facility under that bridge.
But will it come back to council for permission, or do they, is this just a courtesy that they're extending to us?
We certainly will propose that to TGA. The expectation is for them to come back to us, because the expectation is for something meaningful to be built for the community. So there's a reputation for the state government project to deliver in order to suit the community as well. So,
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else like to speak on this? I'll go to move it to close.
Yes, probably just to address, I guess, some of the concerns that the Deputy Mayor's raised. When I read through this motion, the officer's recommendation, I was concerned that it's more of a put, so that the TGA will go through, do engagement, and then item 3 or part C of that recommendation gives them the green light to go ahead and do it. And I guess that was the concern behind. There is a lot of people that live, it's quite an isolated area, and there is some concerns about antisocial behaviour, which came from a lot of people that would most likely use that infrastructure, the proposed bike facility. So that was the reason behind the motion that I put on the table tonight. And I'm still comfortable that that probably gives the city a bit more control about the next phase of engagement to really refine the elements that are under that bridge. And then we can then go ahead to the TGA and make sure that we deliver on community expectations. So that was the intent, and I still think that the motion that I'm putting forward delivers that. Thank you.
I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Eason and Councillor Peterson-Pick. All those against? You were for, sorry. I'll take that vote again. All those in favour? Councillor Maleka, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Eason, Councillor Peterson-Pick and Councillor Johnson. All those against? Deputy Mayor and myself. That is carried. We'll now move to the next item. 10.6.1.1 Community Facility Lease and Licence User Agreement Policy. Councillor Johnson, you've pulled this. Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
I'll be voting against this one.
So do I have some... Thank you. Deputy Mayor, are you moving the officer's recommendation? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Eason. Deputy Mayor.
No, nothing to say.
Councillor Eason. Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. This policy seeks to take a lot of money away from our community groups. This policy, as it is, removes by, sorry, I can get a lot of feedback, is that okay?
Oh my. Something's wrong with the microphones tonight.
Okay, try that again, thank you. This policy by requesting community groups to pay the utilities removes the connection and the cost drivers between efficient buildings and emissions reduction and who's paying the bills. We've seen the report tells us that the estimated cost of this is not as much as it would be, and that cost will continue to go down with better cost efficiencies and greater use of renewable energy. I think the policy as it has been operating for the last year or so gives the city greater incentive to better maintain our facilities and reduce our energy costs. The benefits of that are not just for the city when they're paying the bills, but it's for our whole community and it's for our community groups too. Asking our community groups to raise, sort of $2 million over the course of this policy just seems that money could be so much better used by our community groups in our community. The community groups are actually doing the work that's in our corporate business plan. It's in our communities. It's in our community plan. Our community groups are doing work for our community and for all of our best interests. So while I see the point that this policy seeks to tidy up some bits and pieces, the actual major thing is a cost grab, and I don't support it.
Thank you. Anyone speaking for? Anyone against? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've gone through the report and I can understand why they need to affect different leases. But this proposal is really an attack on our local community groups and especially on our local sporting groups. In a time when the city should be doing all it can to support local groups and help them to be financially sustainable, doing this in this manner and having to put these costs on all these clubs will have a negligible impact on the city's bottom line, embarrassing at best. What is being proposed is a policy that affects less than 0.35% of the council's budget. But for a community or sporting group, the financial impact could spell disaster. Most of these groups are run by volunteers who put their blood, sweat and tears into their clubs. But instead of advancing the club, people will be trying to fundraise for a total year-on-year saving of at most 0.35% of the city's budget. It's embarrassing. If this policy is adopted, we will see valued community and sporting groups and clubs fold. It is bound to happen. And who loses from that? The very people who we represent and ask for our vote. But instead, voting for this policy is turning your back on the places that are the fabric of our community, especially the volunteers. If you believe budget repair is needed, going after community groups is probably one of the worst ways to go about it. And at the end of the day, it won't fix any cancelled budget. But it will ruin the lives of people who live here. The city's motto is quality lifestyle. What kind of quality lifestyle includes volunteer groups, community groups and sporting groups finding life harder and potentially folding? When this policy was first looked at, the city said it would cost $500,000 a year. Then we were told 350 per year, and now we are seeing 290. So actually the bottom line hit is nearly 50% of what the city anticipated. So it's not even as bad as we were told twice. What's more, the policy resulted in the city seeking to roll out solar panels on city buildings faster than it would have otherwise done. So the policy actually has helped with climate change. And really, we need to keep helping our volunteers to keep these clubs alive. Having them having to pay and returning back the clock to 2015 is just ridiculous. I think if we carry on the way we are doing, we'll see those costs come down with all of the necessities. And when you look at the actual leaseholding contracts, where we are now seeing them paying for the services, and it's even put under as the cities, with costs being borne by the tenant. So what we have here are the city will undertake the servicing of all inbuilt mechanical services, e.g. air conditioning and cool rooms and alarm systems, and adding on that, with the cost being borne by the tenant. So we're getting a double whammy here against our sporting clubs and other community clubs. I think we have to think very carefully about this, and that's why I propose not to agree to these outrageous statements here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone for? Anyone against? I'll go to the mover to close.
Yeah, I'd just like to address that last point in relation to the maintenance. The city isn't putting that on there. Clubs currently do pay all of the maintenance costs themselves. What the city is actually putting on there is that some clubs will be eligible for a 50% discount, so they actually save money through that. Currently, we have a policy, and this one that is up for change, that's only been in effect for approximately 12 months. So this was voted on about 18 months ago. It's only been practicable for the last approximate 12 months. We have approximately, I think it's 39 or 40 clubs that are covered by this lease. So we have about 35 clubs that aren't. So that's 35 clubs that we aren't paying their utility bills. We have up to a 10-year time frame. So this isn't an instant thing that's going to be for our clubs. They're still going to be leases that are honoured, where we will be continue to paying the maintenance costs for those clubs for some of them up to 10 years' time. I think that is a really good deal and a really good support for our clubs. Because when you speak with other local governments, I can tell you that they don't pay their utility bills for their clubs. Personally, I really struggle with the concept of it. And while I did support this the first time round, I struggle with it because I've gone past clubs at night time and the evaporative air conditioner is still operating in winter, overnight, because there's no impetus now for clubs to turn off their lights, to turn off the water, to turn off the power. And yeah, we could be rolling out faster on solar power, but 290,000, that could be 29 clubs a year. that we can do. So we could do all of our clubs ambitiously in 2 years' time, approximately, basing it on, $10,000 a year for solar panels. Sorry, $10,000 for installation per club. So I think that the best thing that we can do for all of our residents and for equality between all of our clubs who aren't all on this sweet deal is to make it an even playing field.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Muleka, Councillor Eason, Deputy Mayor and myself. All those against? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pick and Councillor Johnson. That is carried. We'll now move on to item 10.6.1.5.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Thank you. 10.6.1.2, strategic budget policy.
Yes?
Is it possible to pull that?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you very much.
So,
Thank you.
sorry, councillors, we'll now go back to item 10.6.1.2, strategic budget policy. Councillor Palmer, are you moving the officer's recommendation?
I'd like to change it, please. Thank you.
Have you provided the amendment?
Yes, I have. Not actually the amendments, but I'm going to speak against it as such. I'll just get it out there.
Sorry, are you speaking against the officer's recommendation?
Yes.
But
Thank you. Just for this slight amendment, actually. 398.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
Have you got another motion that you're moving?
Not particularly, but what I'd like to do is, sorry, I'm just getting the right page out for you. 327. Had this all in order before. Thank you. Thank you. Basically, the amendment, if it was going to be, is that the major capital works reserve should actually not be at the major capital works reserve, and it should be at the, which is the other reserve that we call, there's another reserve. No, it's the one for the future strategy, like long-term financial plan.
So through the chair, so that would be the major capital works? Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'll withdraw that. Thank you.
Okay. So you'd like to move this motion? Do I have a seconder? That's the officer's recommendation. So moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Eason. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to it? Councillor Eason?
Just briefly, so it's just making it a lot more transparent and clear on what the intent of that motion was, so I fully support it.
Would anyone like to speak against? Anyone for? Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, just those in the middle of it, and the reason I actually pulled it is because I felt that we need the reserves going for future capital, and I felt that the major capital works may not keep that future 1%, which we instigated in 2016, was it? Or 2015. That 1% of reserve should be kept aside. And I didn't really feel, I felt uncomfortable that it went into major capital works instead of future long-term financial plan. Thank you.
Anyone speaking against? Anyone for? I'll go to the mover to close. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to 10.6.1.5. This was originally pulled by Councillor Bull, but he's not here. However, we're advised the Deputy Mayor would like to pull this.
Yeah, I submitted an amendment that was sent to all councillors last week.
So if I just get the minute taker, if you could please put the amendment on the screen. Deputy Mayor, can you please read it out?
So the amendment was, sorry, is that up on the screen, the amendment? The intent of the amendment was that that was subject to, if the canopy target was to change, that the document is changed to reflect that target amount. So where it says 2025, it should now state 2030 to reflect that. Sorry, I can't find my exact wording for it. Do you have that there? Sorry, I seem to have misplaced it in my paperwork. Do you have that? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, no, got that one. So yeah, okay. Oh, we're back. So just the first paragraph under the introduction section be changed to read as follows. The City of Bayswater's tree canopy coverage is approximately 14.5% based on the light detection and ranging calculation undertaken in 2021. The City has made a commitment to increase canopy coverage to 20% by the year 2030 in order to increase the level of benefits derived from having trees within the urban environment. Now, that was the only amendment I was proposing. However, we did receive a memorandum with a recommendation to consider from the officers. I've only just received a hard copy of that, so if somebody else wants to do that one.
So I'll just see if there's a seconder. So this is your motion as it is on the screen?
Yeah, it was just amending that to reflect the 2030 target.
Okay, so I'll see if there's a seconder. Councillor Eason.
So it just needs to have the actual year put in there.
So where it's got ...
Yep, 2030. I don't know what to do about that.
I'll just wait until we get some advice from the officers. So it's just LIM 2 that's been updated with the date to align with the other policy. That correct?
What's up there is from the memo. So was that an amended officer's recommendation? What was in the memo?
Through the chair, if I can probably explain, point 2 reflects what council resolved last Tuesday, which is the 20% by 2030, plus there was those middle term targets, so we just reflected that. In regards, this particular one, clause 1 reflects the committee recommendation. What we found since the committee meeting, and was subject to the memorandum, it was dated the 21st of June. The intention of clause 2 that was proposed to be amended by the committee was meant to reflect both developments on private property plus developments on by public utilities or service providers. So by the way the committee recommendation is, it deletes any reference at all in the policy in relation to compensation for development, private development that involves the removal of street trees. So what clause 2 there is pretty much for a committee recommendation. We have got another alternative motion which council may wish to consider, which reflects the memorandums pretty much as recent as today. Just to clarify, today's memorandum, we had a comparison to the urban trees policy that was endorsed last week. to the trees on private land policy, and just to see there's no no requirements that's beyond what's in the urban trees policy, and we identified there was requirements in the private trees this policy that is beyond what's in there. So I can put that up on the screen, explain what the difference is.
So you're suggesting the memorandum that was distributed today should have been an addendum, as in a new officer's recommendation?
Through the chair, we did a memo because committees only made a recommendation, but basically it was just to give council the consideration that they could consider that.
So councillors, have you read the memorandum that came out today? Councillor Palmer?
Yeah, I just need to have something clarified. I'm looking at the requirements for tree on street verges, the changes and so forth. And the one we received on this dated the 4th of July, it says compensation from the utility provider or authority for the amenity, Helliwell valuation, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't say the landowner or the developer, which has been crossed off in the previous point 2. And I think that should be put into this new one that we've received today, landowner and developer.
I'll just get clarification.
Yeah.
I'll just get clarification from the director.
It's not on here.
Thank you. Through the chair, if I can just get the minute taker to get the other alternative motion that we did prepare that reflects today's memorandum, which hopefully will clarify together with the changes Councillor Earhart has previously requested.
So this is what was in today's memorandum?
No, this is the one that was this afternoon. No, it doesn't. It excludes the tree. Basically, the requirements that's beyond the urban trees policy in the planning policy talks about the applicant requiring them to not just to pay for the compensation, how they will, and to pay for removal, but the tree policy, this planning policy also requires the planting of a tree plus 3 years maintenance, which is excessive of what the urban trees policy is. So we didn't draft one this afternoon to reflect the memorandum.
So this is the correct one that was on our table, Mr. John?
Essentially, yes.
Can I get confirmation that what's on the screen?
Through the chair, it doesn't have your Councillor Earhart's changed them, but the one that we got that we're going to put on the screen includes.
Sorry, just through the chair.
Oh, okay.
So if we were to go with this one, then my amendment would be, I presume, limb 4.
That's right, and it is. We have drafted one to go up on the screen, so we're just trying to gauge that.
So let's just get it on the screen before we go any further. councillors, it's now up on the screen. But there's some things that have been crossed off on here. Can I? So, excuse me, this is a question to the director. In limb 1 and limb 2, there's a line through some of the things.
Yeah, through the chair, that was basically to reflect the change that was made to the first memorandum. I can talk through each of those clauses and exactly what's proposed.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the first clause talks about making reference to the public utilities. It does exclude what the current clause has in the policy, which is about that one that we strike through. So the proposal, the intention is to delete that to be consistent with the urban trees policy, the strike through section. Clause 2 talks about explicitly what landowners and developers have to do in terms of removal of street tree. Again, it's just basically say they need to pay compensation through Harriwell valuation plus the cost of removal. It is proposed to delete reference to the costs of a range of revision of a replacement tree and the three trees maintenance, again, just to be consistent with the urban trees policy. Clause 3 is basically just renumbering, and clause 4 is to reflect Councillor Earhart's motion.
Okay, that's understood. So I'll just go to the Deputy Mayor who moved.
I've just got a question.
Go ahead.
What's the Halliwell value of a dead tree? I'm just asking because under clause 1, a dead tree is one of the things that we would charge a Halliwell value for under what's on the screen.
Through the chair, I suppose the value of a dead tree just depends on why it died in the first instance.
Okay, so I suppose that would be my only concern about this. I think that we absolutely, if somebody wants to remove a tree, we absolutely should be going Halliwell method, and they pay for the removal. My concern about this one, though, is just because in clause 1 it says if a tree is dead. But there's no parameters around that, whether it's poisoned or whether it died because of lowering water table during the summer. So I suppose I'm uneasy about that aspect with somebody who's got a verge tree that has died. It's been dead on the verge for a bit. We haven't taken it out, whatever reason, and then they decide to put in another. They need to remove it for development reasons. Yeah, I suppose intrinsically, I've got no issue with it. It's just that's leaving me a little bit uncertain.
So can I clarify, what are you moving?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Okay, do I have a seconder for this?
A couple of questions.
I'll
please.
just wait till I get a seconder. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Yep. Councillor Easton? Okay, Councillor Palmer, I just have to give them the opportunity to speak before we go to questions. Deputy Mayor, nothing. Councillor Easton? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On tree maintenance replacement, they've crossed out landowner or developer on that one. So is that staying? Why have they bothered to cross out the developer on this one?
Sorry, just before we continue, I believe we've just received notification from some members in the public that their live stream has no audio.
They'll be able to watch it later, but not now. That's out of it.
Okay.
We had IT and we had our external tech person try and remote in. They weren't able to figure out what the issue was, so because it's being recorded separately, they're just going to splice it together afterwards. So while people aren't able to watch now, they will be able to.
So the live stream isn't working right now?
Not completely.
So the audio is not working, the picture is working, not the audio. So councillors have just become aware of this. So please continue, Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering if we can put a notation up to the viewers to say that it's going to be rectified or something. But apart from that, I'll carry on with this one. You've crossed out on the arrangements or the replacement and 3 years maintenance on the screen there, point 1 or clause 1. Is there any reason why we're not doing the maintenance, please?
Through the chair, basically that strike through words is so that those provisions for the removal of street tree is aligned with the recently endorsed urban tree policy, which does not require have those requirements in.
Thank you. I'll just ask another quick one here. I just want to assure myself that there is costs awarded against developers and landowners regarding the tree issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone speaking for? Anyone against? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, I would like to ask a question, if I can. I'm trying to understand the differences. I'm looking at the original policy that we had, and with regards to the changes that the director just explained, and I'm looking at the clause from the previous policy, which was clause 2, under requirements for trees on street verges. I read that in the previous policy that we had, which is the current policy, if a tree needs to be removed, the landowner or developer is required to pay for a new standard tree. So I would like to get clarification if we are actually removing that requirement now with the changes in front of us, that they are not required to pay for a tree anymore, for the new tree.
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, yeah, what's on the screen basically saying the developer or the applicant just needs to pay purely the compensation cost of the valuation, Hello valuation, plus the cost of removal of the existing tree. As it stands, what's proposed here is that they do not pay for a replacement tree, nor the 3 years maintenance.
And previously in the current policy that we have, they were required to pay for a new tree to replace the one that needs to be removed?
Through the chair, my recollection is that it was more of a practice when dealing with applications as it came by. I don't think it was explicit in the current policy.
Can the director please look at clause 3 of the current policy and advise what clause 3 that is suggested to be removed from the policy? And I'm looking on page 413, the agenda at the top. The changes show that clause 3 is being crossed out, and it says if no street trees exist, or a street tree is to be removed with regard to clause 1. Okay, sorry, forget about that. I heard from you that you said that the practice was to ask the landowner to be responsible for the provision of a new tree to replace the one that needed to be removed. Is that correct?
Councillor Peterson-Pick, the director just answered that question.
And I just want to clarify, was that the case?
He just answered that and said yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, obviously I have concerns with this. This is going backwards again on the same issue of trees. Look, I don't have the voice to start talking about this. I'll just vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone speaking for? If not, I'll go to the mover to close. Okay, so we're putting this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Easton, Deputy Mayor and myself. All those against? Councillor Palmer, Councillor Peterson-Pick and Councillor Johnson. That is carried. So, councillors, that's all the items that have been pulled. So we'll now move to adopting the remaining items on block. Do I have a mover? Councillor Maleka, seconded by Councillor, by the Deputy, Councillor Johnson.
Just for clarity, does this include the, is this just up to 10.6 or does this include the confidential item?
No, it doesn't include the confidential
you.
item. It's all the items under 10. Yeah, so we're moving all the remaining items from section 10 on block, moved by Councillor Maleka, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 12, questions from members without notice. Do we have any questions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. So my question without notice is about bike accidents and how they're recorded or what impact they have on road design. Is there a process for reporting bike accidents that feeds into some sort of planning process or comes up as a kind of a bike black spot data?
I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, if the accident occurs on the road, it does get recorded as an accident. That information is basically collated through the state government. It is then made available to local government and to the state, obviously. And that information, generally, we use that information when we're looking at black spot locations.
Can I just clarify, please? Is that if an accident involves a car, or if it's just an accident with a bike only, or a bike and a bike, or a bike and a pedestrian? Like,
through the chair, what qualifies as black spot, they take into consideration any sort of accident, so whether it be vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to pedestrians or vehicle to cyclists. So all forms of accidents are recorded and taken into consideration.
thank you. So to be included in that data, does a police report need to be made?
As I understand, only accidents that have been recorded through the police are taken into consideration. So any accidents that the driver or the motorist have not reported to the police, the state government or the police would not have record of it and therefore cannot be taken into consideration because there's no record of it.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, you very kindly showed us the letter that was sent from the former Prime Minister Scott Morrison regarding the assistance that they gave to Ukraine. And we also sent a letter, as per the motion, to our now Prime Minister Albanese. And I'm wondering if there was a letter sent or if we had a return letter from him, and pleased to say that he visited Ukraine this week. But I wondered if the letter came back. Thank you.
From my recollections, I haven't received any response from Prime Minister Albanese in response to the letter that we sent from the Ukraine. But I would like to acknowledge Oksana, who's in the gallery tonight, and she arrived from the Ukraine about a month ago. So welcome. And she's a Morley resident. So thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Eason?
Just one, thanks. There was, I believe there was a decision handed down by the Minister for Planning regarding an amendment 95 to the city's town planning scheme for 504 and 508 Guildford Road in Bayswater. That was the application for an ALDI or similar, which council resolved to not approve at the January SCM. What was the outcome and was any reasoning given?
We'll go to the Director.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. On the 17th of May this year, the amendment number 95 was considered by the West Australian Planning Commission, the statutory planning committee of that commission, which resolved to provide a recommendation to the minister that it is noted both the report and the recommendation was confidential. However, the minister did advise that she did refuse amendment number 95 on the 9th of June this year. The reasons given is the proposed additional use of shop constitutes an encroachment on industrial land inconsistent with the provisions of the draft State Planning Policy 4.1 Industrial Interface, And secondly, the amendment proposes to facilitate out-of-centre development in a manner that was considered inconsistent with the provisions of the State Planning Policy 4.2 relating to activity centres for Perth and Peel, and the draft State Planning Policy 4.2 activity centres. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Peterson-Pick.
Yes, thank you. We just heard that the Minister for Local Government announced the outcome or what will happen with the reform of local governments. And I understood that one of the proposals now, agreed proposals, is to reduce the number of councillors. And can we get clarification? What does that mean for our council?
I'll go to the CEO.
Thank you, and through the chair, could you just repeat that very last question, the last sentence?
Yes, one of the proposals from the local government reform announced by the minister 2 days ago is to reduce the number of councillors in councils like ours. That is my understanding. So I wanted to understand whether the city already knows the implications for us. How would that impact us?
Thank you, and through the chair, the minister is on record saying that he would like to see the amendments to the Local Government Act in place for 2023, which of course is next year when the next election is held. Having said that though, the wording of the Act is not known. We're aware of the intent through the release recently of the proposed legislation, but that needs to be converted into legislation and considered by Parliament. And then there may well be consequential amendments to other sections of the Act as well as regulations prepared. So at this stage, we just do not have any information that we could categorically advise council as to whether or not it would affect us next year. In my view, time is very tight in order for that to occur right now. We may have some further advice later on in the week after a meeting that Walga officers were intending to have today with officers of the department, but I suspect the advice will still be it is too early to say whether or not it will impact on not only the City of Bayswater but other local governments in 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 14, confidential items. We have one confidential item this evening. We'll need to go behind closed doors. So do I have a mover to go behind closed doors? Councillor Palmer, do I have a seconder? I'll second it. Put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? Councillor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Peterson-Pick. Can we please close the doors? And I will close this evening's meeting at 8:26 p.m. Thank you.